So once the commissioners are in their position, we're going to have the national anthem. So let's all kindly be upstanding for the national anthem. The East African anthem. Jumuiya Afrika Mashariki, tuwezeshe kuishi kwa amani, tutimize na malengo yetu. Jumuiya yetu sote tuilinde, tuwajibike, tuimarike. Umoja wetu ni nguzo yetu, idumu jumuiya yetu. Thank you very much. You can take your seats. Yeah, once more, thank you for showing up for this event. That is my name. I'm the Head of Public Affairs and Communications at the International Commission on Human Rights. Karibuni sana. So we'll do a very quick introduction before we proceed. So I'll just pass the microphone around. Just tell us your name and which media house you present. And then once you're done, we'll go direct to the statements, which the International Commission on Human Rights will be releasing, which is about the state of human rights from December 2024 to December 2025. Just a quick introduction.
Good morning, my name is Lopera Martin from KNCI.
Good morning, my name is David Johnson from KNCI.
Good morning, my name is Kevin from KNCI.
My name is Kevin, not Christian.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Felix from Radios TV.
I'm Jim Israel Manda, GLC News.
John Umusi Faife.
James Mutua, East Africa Journal.
James Jabola, Kenya Governance Magazine.
Geoffrey Miaya from KNCI.
Hello everyone.
Mimi Bonga Mjambo, Alex Njoroge kutoka Kampuni ya Taifa kutetea haki za kibinadamu. Mwanzo AFP.
Good morning. My name is Joseph from KCC.
Good morning. My name is Chief Solomon from NLB.
Good morning. Labara Shabana from NTV.
Good morning. My name is Nana Kogoya from KCC. I am really KCC. Good morning. My name is Nana Kogoya from KCC.
Morning, this is Madam from Social Bonus Initiative and Human Rights Defender.
Good morning. I'm Jeffrey saying yes.
Good morning, Samuel Tutuba from Parkland News.
Good morning. Mary Bongoy from the STV Voice.
Morning. This is the for Tasman News.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, report.
Good morning, I'm James from IoT.
Good morning. Lavenda Kusuma from the Police.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Naif Rashid, Kenya News Agency.
Good morning. I am Jambo from the National Commission on Human Rights. Good morning. Juliet Melo, KTN with 100.
Morning, Rashid KTN.
Okay, thank you very much. I can see someone still outside. I think can someone from the national, I can see someone from the please come here starting. So we'll get to know our commissioners before we conclude today's session. So from here we will turn the vice chair, who will invite the chairperson to do the chairperson's remarks about the state of human rights. Then from there we'll have a photo session whereby it will be a display of the reports by the commissioners and the CEO for the immediate after that moment. Then from there we'll be sharing with you copies of the statement. So we have a soft copy. We're going to obey a QR code for you to scan and then be able to share a few hard copies. Linesta kindly wave. Linesta will be handing to you some hard copies after the session. Then we'll have a QR code for the full report and also for the summary that will be presented. So immediately after the chair finishes her remarks, we'll open the floor for questions. In case you have any questions, then you have a chance to ask them at that particular point. So with that said and done, it's my humble duty to invite our vice chairperson to invite the chairperson to make the remarks. Any question?
Thank you so much, Dan. Our invited guests from the media houses, our human rights defenders, who are very strong partners, our staff from the commission, including the commissioners. Good morning. First, I want to take this opportunity to welcome you to this very important function, a function that we value as a commission, because it's going to give us how the state of human rights has been for the last 1 year. And before I invite our chair to give our address, I want to introduce my colleagues, and I will start from my left side. Please, Commissioner, introduce yourself.
Good morning. My name is Sarah Lorena, Commissioner of KMC.
Dr. Bernard Mogesa, the CEO, Kenya National Commission on Human Rights.
Good morning. My name is Professor Marion Mutungi. I'm a commissioner with the Kenya National Commission on Human Rights.
Good morning all. I'm Dr. Dennis Sohara, a commissioner at the Kenya National Commission on Human Rights. Welcome.
And my name is Dr. Dennis Raymond, the Vice Chairperson, Kenya National Commission on Human Rights. And it's now my pleasure to welcome our Chair to make her address. Welcome, Chair.
Thank you very much. Members of the press, good morning. Ladies and gentlemen, allow me to read the statement as prepared on behalf of the Commission that speaks to the issues of human rights for the last 1 year. So this statement is issued pursuant to the mandate of the Kenya National Commission on Human Rights under Article 59 of the Constitution of Kenya and the KNCHR Act to promote and protect human rights and fundamental freedoms for all persons in Kenya. So the report presents the Commission's independent assessment of the state of human rights for the period starting December 2024 to December 2025. And it highlights key gains, persistent challenges, and priority actions required from state and non-state actors. The Kenya National Commission on Human Rights, as you know, is an A-status national human rights institution, and I take great pride in the role the Commission has played nationally, regionally, and internationally to infuse human rights principles and standards in laws, policies, and practice. And this is in recognition that human rights is not a favor, but an entitlement inherent in every person and may only be limited in strict compliance with Article 24 of the Constitution. Further, this report is an obligation under Article 2541 of the Constitution and Sections 53(1) and 1A of the KNCHR Act, and at the right time, the report will be presented to the President and to Parliament. So in terms of what transpired within the year, Kenya's human rights performance during the period under review witnessed unprecedented and grave human rights violations that shocked the nation. The state, as a primary duty bearer, is obliged to respect, protect, promote, and fulfill all rights and fundamental freedoms, while all persons, as rights holders, must exercise their rights responsibly and with due regard to the rights of others. Members of the press, during the period under review, the Kenya National Commission on Human Rights received a total of 2,848 complaints with violations relating to economic, social, and cultural rights, emerging as the single largest category at 1,381 cases, followed by 1,171 complaints on civil and political rights and 299 cases on group rights, among others. The Commission notes that unmet economic, social, and cultural rights, including health, food, education, housing, and social protection, did not just mirror economic hardship, but they were a key driver of public frustration and youth-led agitation that in turn fueled many of the civil and political rights violations that we have documented in this report. It is therefore imperative to read the status of civil and political rights in Kenya through the lens of deepening socio-economic inequality and unfulfilled social justice, which continue to undermine the promise of the Constitution's Bill of Rights. I will now address you on the current status of the respective human rights and fundamental freedoms as provided in Chapter 4 of the Constitution of Kenya, which contains our very progressive Bill of Rights. And allow me to start with economic, social, and cultural rights. Number one, rights to the highest attainable standard of health. Kenya continues to make important strides towards the constitutional vision of the rights to the highest attainable standard of health, including through digitalization initiatives at both national and county levels, and incremental resource allocation to key health programs. These efforts, if properly designed and implemented, are crucial for the equitable and inclusive access to healthcare, particularly for vulnerable and marginalized groups. But much more needs to be done to ensure they are not left behind. The Commission welcomes the enhanced allocation of Kenya shillings 138.1 billion to the health sector in the 2025-2026 financial year. The Commission has, however, received numerous complaints on challenges in accessing healthcare through the Social Health Authority, that is SHA, and will continue to engage the Ministry of Health and other actors to ensure that service delivery is optimal. The Lipa SHA Pole Pole policy must be operationalized with urgency as a primary measure for making health services accessible to vulnerable and marginalized populations. The push for a centralized and independent human resource agency for the health sector is long overdue and should be prioritized. The Commission also remains concerned about the detention of patients and deceased bodies over unpaid hospital bills, noting that there are clear judicial pronouncements against these practices, reinforced by guidance from the Kenya Medical Practitioners and Dentists Councils. So in regards to the right to health, the Commission calls on the Ministry of Health and SHA to ensure timely and consistent payments to contracted providers and to review premium payments laws to operationalize Lipa SHA Pole Pole so that members can pay in affordable installments. The Commission also calls for digital health interventions to be subjected to human rights impact assessments with results made public and for robust safeguards to protect personal health data. The Commission calls on the Inspector General of Police and relevant agencies to undertake thorough investigations into alleged organ harvesting and trafficking and bring perpetrators to justice. Then for the national and county governments, we call upon them to guarantee uninterrupted supply of essential medicines and medical commodities in all public health facilities. Then when we look at Article 43(1)(c) on the right to food, the Constitution guarantees every person the right to be free from hunger. It is the prerogative of the government to ensure adequate food supplies for its people through enhancing factors of production. The Commission notes that the country's food balance sheet shows an improvement in the self-sufficiency ratio from 94.8% in 2023 to 105.5% in 2024, reflecting enhanced domestic production on key food commodities. Nonetheless, reports from arid and semi-arid, such as some semi-arid areas such as Samburu, Tana River, indicate worsening nutritional outcomes due to constrained access to diverse diets, reduced milk consumption, and limited health services outreach. The Commission has also received complaints from farmers, particularly maize farmers, decrying low farm gate prices and high production costs, which have turned agriculture into a loss-making venture despite reductions in fertilizer prices. This situation undermines livelihoods and threatens long-term food security. So on this, the Commission calls on the national and county governments to invest in long-term measures to address food insecurity, especially in ASAL counties, including strategic food reserves and climate-resilient production systems. To the national government, the Commission calls on them to cushion farmers from losses through fair pricing, timely payments, and support mechanisms that guarantee sustainable production. The right to education. Fellow Kenyans, the Commission acknowledges ongoing reforms under the competency-based education and training system, including the recruitment of teachers by the government since 2022 and efforts by the Teacher Service Commission to retool teachers. However, gaps in teacher training, overcrowded classrooms, inadequate infrastructure, limited access to electricity and internet, and scarcity of digital devices have made it difficult to deliver learner-centered, resource-intensive CBET, particularly in rural and marginalized areas. The Commission is further concerned that the new higher education funding model, combined with unregulated program costing, has rendered certain courses unaffordable for students from low-income backgrounds, thereby entrenching indirect discrimination and inequality. Persistent delays and inadequacy in disbursing capitation to schools is also undermining the right to education. And on this, the Commission calls for timely and adequate capitation to schools that reflect prevailing economic realities. The Commission calls on the National Assembly to expedite consideration of measures to streamline and consolidate education funding to ensure coherence, equity, and accountability. For the Ministry of Education, we call upon them to fully anchor CBET in law in line with the relevant court decisions and to ensure reasonable accommodation and integrated learning for learners with disability, including provision of sign language capacity. And on the government to guarantee a level playing field by investing in infrastructure, laboratories, and digital tools for all schools, especially in marginalized regions, and to fast-track retooling of teachers for CBET. On the right to housing, the Constitution of Kenya guarantees the right to housing and provides that every person has the right to accessible and adequate housing, and this is found in Article 43(1)(b) of the Constitution. The Commission recognizes the government's continued implementation of the Affordable Housing Program, through which thousands of units have been completed or under construction and across a majority of counties. However, limited public understanding of the housing model, inadequate access to information in languages and formats that communities can appreciate, and cases of forced or poorly managed evictions, especially in informal settlements, have exposed many heightened vulnerability and undermined dignity. So on this, the Commission calls on the government to respect and protect the rights of all persons in the implementation of affordable housing projects and to ensure meaningful public participation and access to information. The Commission also calls for strict adherence to national and international standards on evictions, including provisions of adequate notice, consultation, alternative accommodation where necessary, and remedies where violations have occurred. The Commission also calls upon state agencies to guarantee adequate and quality water and sanitation facilities, especially within settlement programs. And lastly, calls for strengthened transparency and accountability in all contracts, tenders, and procurement processes under the housing program to prevent corruption. On consumer rights, Article 46 of the Constitution provides for the rights of consumers to goods and services of reasonable quality, the information necessary to them to gain full benefit from goods and services, and protection of their health, safety, and economic interest. During this period, the Commission was seized of the matter of the genetically modified organisms, whose ban was lifted by the Cabinet in October 2022, but has been a subject of several litigations since then. The Commission therefore calls on the Ministry of Health to make public the 2014 GMO Task Force report, and together with the National Biosafety Authority, undertake a robust and meaningful public awareness on genetically modified products to help the public make informed decisions. Further, the Commission calls on the Ministry of Agriculture and Livestock Development and the Pest Control Board to ensure enforcement and compliance with the ban on harmful chemical products from the market. Allow me now to move on to the issues around civil and political rights. And I'll start with the right to life. Article 26(1) of the Constitution of Kenya guarantees every person's right to life, and the period under review saw an affront to this right, especially between the months of June and July during civic unrests. During the period December 2024 to December 2025, the Commission documented 57 violations on the right to life. These include the killing of a human rights defender, one Richard Otieno in Molo, the fatal shooting of a minor in Kiambu County, land clashes that saw 5 people killed in Angata, Baragoi, the murder of a civilian, Albert Ojwang, in police custody, among others. The Commission has also noted the killing of security agents in the line of duty, which erodes public trust and is an impediment to the enforcement of law and order. The Kenya National Commission on Human Rights regrets this and several other documented cases of loss of lives in violation of the Constitution of Kenya. The Commission therefore calls for the full operationalization of the National Coroner Service Act, including the appointment of the Chief Coroner and establishment of the service, and urges the adoption of the Minnesota Protocol on the investigation of potentially unlawful deaths. The Commission further calls on the Inspector General to expedite investigations into the killings and to bring the perpetrators to book. The Commission also calls on IPOA, that's the Independent Policing and Oversight Authority, to expedite investigations into enforced disappearances, torture, and the deaths of citizens in custody, and recommend charges against officers accused of extrajudicial killings. We move to rights to freedom and security of the person. Article 29 of the Constitution of Kenya guarantees every person's right not to be subjected to any form of violence from either public or private sources, or to cruel, inhuman, or degrading treatment. Ladies and gentlemen, the Commission during this period under review received and documented 661 complaints on violation of the right to freedom and security of the person between December 2024 and December 2025, and regrets the resurgence of cases of arbitrary detentions and torture, including abductions and enforced disappearances allegedly committed by security officials. And during the period under review, 15 cases of abductions were reported. And while the Commission has observed relative calm and improved security in North Rift counties, gazetted as disturbed and dangerous, of West Pokot, Elgeyo Marakwet, Baringo, Turkana, and Samburu, the Commission remains concerned over reports of extrajudicial killings allegedly by security officers under Operation Maliza Uhalifu. The Commission is in receipt of 12 complaints of abductions, torture, and extrajudicial killings which occurred in parts of Marakwet East, Pokot Central, and Tiaty counties. Additionally, the Commission noted the emergence of criminal gangs used by politicians and business communities for private security, for terror, and for intimidation. These are a threat to national security and must be dealt with within the ambit of the law. The Commission therefore calls for the provision of adequate resources to ensure full implementation of the Prevention of Torture Act of 2017 to enable the Commission to monitor, document, and report on cases of torture as instructed under Section 12 of the Torture Act. The Commission further calls on the ratification of the International Convention for the Protection of All Persons from Enforced Disappearances, and this will affirm the state's commitment and pledges to end enforced disappearances in Kenya. Further, the Commission calls for the ongoing disarmament of communities to be supported as a means of ensuring sustainable peace and security in affected regions, while emphasizing that all disarmament activities must be conducted strictly within the ambit of the law and adoption of a whole-of-government societal approach to comprehensively address the root causes and drivers of banditry. The Commission calls on security forces operating under Operation Maliza Uhalifu, Operation Ondoa Jangili, to carry out their law enforcement roles guided by the rule of law. Allow me now to move to political rights. Article 38 of the Constitution guarantees all Kenyans the freedom to make political choices, including the right to vote for candidates of their choice without undue influence. The Commission monitored the by-elections held on the 27th of November 2025 for the Baringo senatorial positions, position as well as for the member of the National Assembly in the constituencies of Kasipul, Mbeere North, Ugunja, Malava, and Magarini. And also monitored member of county assembly elections in Kariobangi North, Mumbuni North, Kabuchai wards, among others, and documented significant breaches of human rights. For instance, the Commission documented 3 deaths during the by-elections, with several documented cases of destruction of property, contrary to Article 41 of the Constitution of 2010. Additionally, the Commission established that violence was in some instances employed as a tool to scare and harm opponents during the by-elections, contrary to Articles 25 and 29 of the Constitution. Furthermore, the Commission recorded various cases of misuse of freedom of expression, with numerous cases of cyberbullying and dissemination of misleading information. The Commission further noted with concern the numerous cases of open bribery of voters and inducement. The Commission was denied access to 2 tallying centers despite having official accreditation. And it was also noted that senior and middle-level government officials actively participated in the campaigns and were seen as partisan political actors during and after the mini-polls, raising concerns about misuse of public resources and public offices. The Commission therefore calls for the strict adherence to the principles of political neutrality in the public service and urges oversight bodies to address any misuse of state resources for partisan campaigning. The Commission calls on the IEBC, the Office of the Director of Public Prosecution, and the National Police Service to investigate and prosecute cases of voter bribery and to strengthen preventive measures against undue influence, especially in future elections. The Commission calls the National Police Service and IPOA to investigate all instances of election-related violence, including any alleged excessive use of force, and to ensure access to justice and remedies for victims. Allow me to move to the issue of right to assemble, to demonstrate, and to picket and petition. Article 37 of the Constitution guarantees every person the right to peaceably and unarmed to assemble, demonstrate, picket, and present petitions to public authorities. During the period under review, the Commission documented heavy police deployment in counties including Nairobi, Mombasa, Uasin Gishu, and Embu, leading to injuries of 661 demonstrators and 141 persons arbitrarily arrested and detained. The Commission also observed the deployment of hooded officers, use of vehicles with concealed or no registration numbers, contrary to High Court orders. The Kenya National Commission on Human Rights also observed the presence of masked hired goons on motorbikes targeting peaceful protesters and bystanders. These practices severely undermine the right to peaceful assembly and erode public trust in law enforcement. The Commission therefore calls for thorough and expeditious investigations into individuals responsible for mobilizing and deploying perpetrators of violence against peaceful demonstrators and their prosecution. The Commission calls on the Inspector General to ensure compliance with court orders and decisions requiring police officers to maintain visible identification while on duty. The Commission calls for the development of a modern public order management law aligned with the 2010 Constitution and international human rights standards. And also calls for the fast-tracking of regulations under the National Police Service Act governing the use of force and firearms by police officers. Freedom of expression in the media, and I'm sure this is of interest to the people present today. So the Commission has noted with concern a surge in violations against journalists and media practitioners, including assaults, threats, denial of access, destruction of equipment, and temporary shutdowns of media operations, especially during protests and major state events. Journalists from several media outlets covering demonstrations and national celebrations in counties such as Nairobi, Nyeri, Molo, Majengo, and Homa Bay were subjected to violence and intimidation by both security officers and hostile groups. In the same period, Parliament passed the Computer Misuse and Cybercrimes Amendment Act of 2025. And despite substantial constitutional and human rights concerns raised by the Commission and other stakeholders, the Commission maintains that the amendment falls short of legality, clarity, and proportionality, and risks arbitrary enforcement that impacts negatively on the freedom of expression and online innovation. The Commission therefore calls on the Inspector General of Police to investigate and prosecute all attacks against journalists and media practitioners, calls upon the government and regulatory agencies to cease harassment, intimidation, arbitrary detention, and obstruction of journalists, and to ensure an enabling environment where the media can operate freely and independently. On the Communications Authority, the Commission calls upon them to refrain from actions that infringe media and digital freedoms and to discharge its mandate in fidelity to the Constitution of Kenya. For review of the Computer Misuse and Cybercrimes Amendment Act, we are calling upon the relevant actors to bring it in line with the constitutional guarantees under Articles 33, 34, and 35. On freedom of association, this right includes the right to form, to join or participate in an association of any kind and is protected under Article 36 of the Constitution. The Commission notes that more than a year after the operationalization of the Public Benefits Organizations Act of 2013, a key High Court judgment decision delivered on 30th April 2025 found that several provisions of the Act, such as mandatory registration of NGOs, mandatory re-registration of NGOs, the composition of the PBO Authority Board, the compulsory nature of the National Federation, intrusive disclosure obligations, and unfair suspension and cancellation procedures were unconstitutional for violating privacy, freedom of association, fair hearing, and judicial independence. The Commission calls upon the Public Benefits Organizations Regulatory Authority to fully abide by the High Court decision in petition number E519 of 2024 in its implementation of the PBO Act and attendant regulations. Allow me now to move to the rights of special interest and vulnerable groups. And we'll start with the rights of the child. The Commission acknowledges notable efforts towards implementation of the Children's Act of 2022. This includes the commencement of the Children Foster Care and Children Guardianship Practice and Procedure Rules 2024 and the ongoing review of the 2010 National Children Policy by the National Council for Children's Services to align it with the Act, affirming children as a vulnerable members of the community who require affirmative action and whose safety and security in and out of school are primary. The Commission, however, notes with concerns the security attacks against children in the Butere High School play Echoes of War despite a court order. The Commission further reiterates the importance of school feeding programs in realization of children's rights to food, education, and equality initiatives by various county governments that demonstrates how providing daily nutritious meals can reduce barriers for vulnerable families, promote inclusion, and strengthen children's ability to learn and thrive while supporting increased school enrollment and improved access to education. The Commission also observed that FGM still remains a threat to the rights of the girl child and therefore calls upon the government through the National Council for Children's Services to enhance collaborations with stakeholders, to augment child protection measures, to fight harmful cultural practices, and address the increasing number of children in conflict with the law. The Commission calls on the Teacher Service Commission to enforce and monitor strict adherence to the prohibition of corporal punishment in schools. The Commission also calls for strengthening monitoring and rapid response mechanisms, including cross-border surveillance to prevent evasion of anti-FGM laws and ensure timely intervention in vulnerable communities. The Commission calls on the government to implement the specialized FGM training module for law enforcement officers and local administrators to strengthen prevention and enforcement efforts. On the rights of persons with disability, the Commission acknowledges the enactment of the Persons with Disability Act of 2025, which provides a comprehensive legal framework for the promotion, protection, and advancement of the rights and fundamental freedoms of persons with disability in employment, education, public affairs, healthcare, and other sectors. The Commission also welcomes the government's approval of the Building Code, spearheaded by the Ministry of Lands, Public Works, and Housing, which will enhance inclusion, safety, and access rights. Despite these milestones, persons with disabilities continue to face serious challenges due to low implementation of laws and policies, failure by most employers to meet the 5% employment quota, and the slow pace of promoting integrated and inclusive education. The Commission therefore calls on the national government to fully implement legal and policy frameworks on disability inclusion by enforcing the 5% employment quota across all public institutions and ensuring county governments align development priorities, budgeting, and service delivery with the Persons with Disability Act of 2025, including accessible infrastructure and inclusive education, particularly in the ASAL regions. The Commission also calls on the Ministry of Education to accelerate integrated and inclusive education by increasing resources and ensuring schools, especially in ASAL areas, have adequate assistive devices and accessible learning environments. Allow me to move to gender rights. And during the period under review, the country experienced a disturbing rise in femicide cases, with reports indicating over 100 cases in the first 3 months of 2025. And this prompted the President to establish a technical working group on gender-based violence, including femicide, via Gazette Notice number 109, whose report is yet to be made public. This pattern of brutal killings of women underscores the grave risks women and girls continue to face and the urgency of an effective state response. The Commission calls on the President to urgently release the report of the technical working group and calls on the relevant agencies to put in place measures to ensure the implementation of the recommendations that will be part of that report of the task force. The Commission calls on the National Police Service to take proactive measures to ensure that perpetrators of crimes, including femicide, are promptly investigated, prosecuted, and brought to justice. Allow me to move to the issue of refugee rights. The launch of the Shirika Plan in March 2025 marked a shift from a purely humanitarian response to a government-led, development-oriented approach aimed at sustainable inclusion of refugees and host communities, complementing Kenya National Commission on Human Rights Haki na Ushirikiano initiatives. While only sparse rights violations were recorded in Dadaab and Kakuma, the forcible return of 4 asylum seekers from Turkey, among other return of persons in Kenya, has raised serious concerns about Kenya's adherence to international principles on refugees and asylum seekers. The Commission therefore calls on the government to strengthen refugee access to labour rights and economic opportunities so that refugees can work legally, engage in income-generating activities, and access social services, supporting self-reliance and integration while upholding national labour standards. The Commission also calls on the government to ensure all refugees are protected from arbitrary use of force and other human rights violations, and to establish independent mechanisms for investigating allegations of abuse in refugee settings in line with international human rights obligations. I move on to the rights of indigenous persons. The Commission notes continuing concerns regarding the rights of indigenous people, including the Ogiek and the Chamus, particularly around land, reparations, and participation in natural resource governance. Delays in fully implementing regional court decisions and land awards perpetuate historical injustices and insecurity of tenure. The Commission calls on the government to fully comply with all outstanding orders of the African Court in the Ogiek case, including securing title deeds for community and ancestral lands, issuing reparations, implementing protective and restitution measures without further delay. The Commission calls on the government to enhance legal and policy protections, guaranteeing indigenous people's participation in decision-making on land, environment, and natural resource governance, and to ensure conservation and development initiatives respect their rights and livelihoods, including expediting implementation of the Ilchamus land decision. I will move on to the youth rights. The Kenya human rights landscape in 2025 was sharply shaped by youth-led civic mobilization, especially by Generation Z or Gen Z as we know them, against rising costs of living and governance failures. The Commission is concerned about profiling of youth and human rights defenders, arbitrary arrests, intimidation, and the chilling effect of the Computer Misuse and Cybercrimes Amendment Act of 2025, which has expanded criminal liability for online behavior and has threatened freedom of expression, association, access to information, and economic rights for young content creators and digital innovators. The Commission calls on the government to strengthen youth participation in governance and policy making, and to amend the Computer Misuse and Cybercrimes Amendment Act of 2025 to protect legitimate online content creation, dissent, and digital entrepreneurship. The Commission calls on the government to expedite licensing and oversight of digital lenders, provide remedies for wrongful CRB listings, and limit the use of CRB clearance in employment to prevent unfair exclusion of young people from job opportunities. I will move on to the rights of intersex persons. The Commission highlights that intersex persons continue to face significant barriers to legal recognition, bodily integrity, access to healthcare, and participation in decision-making, largely due to legal and policy gaps and an entrenched stigma. Addressing these gaps is essential to ensure equality and non-discrimination. The Commission calls on the fast-tracking of the Intersex Persons Bill 2024 to introduce legal recognition and self-determination and develop comprehensive medical guidelines under the Ministry of Health to protect bodily integrity and ensure access to inclusive, non-discriminatory healthcare. The Commission also calls on the integration of intersex voices in policy and law-making processes, strengthening access to justice, so intersex persons can assert their rights, and promotion of public education and awareness to reduce stigma and enhance understanding across all sectors. Allow me now to move to the issue of corruption. The Commission acknowledges that some progress has been made in the fight against corruption, including the enactment of the Conflict of Interest Act and Asset Preservation Laws. However, the Commission remains concerned that corruption continues to undermine access to quality public services and deepen inequalities. The Commission therefore calls for the full implementation of the Conflict of Interest Act, effective whistleblower protection, and human rights-based approaches to recovery and utilization of recovered assets. In terms of compliance with regional and international human rights obligations, the Commission notes that Kenya has made strides in meeting some of its international reporting obligations, but remains behind on certain key reports and observations that limit the full enjoyment of rights, particularly for women and for victims of enforced disappearances. The Commission therefore calls for the ratification of the International Convention for the Protection of All Persons from Enforced Disappearances and lifting of reservations under the Maputo Protocol that constrains women's reproductive rights. The Commission also calls upon the government to comply with pending treaty body reporting obligations and to fully implement recommendations and decisions from international and regional mechanisms. Fellow Kenyans, in conclusion, the Kenya National Commission on Human Rights recognizes that some strides have been made by both state and non-state actors towards the promotion and protection of human rights during the period under review, including legislative, policy, and programmatic advances in health, disability rights, housing, and refugee protection. However, urgent, coordinated, and sustained action is required to address rising inequality, youth disenfranchisement, excessive use of force, digital repression, and persistent corruption that together threaten to erode constitutional gains and public trust in institutions. The Commission calls upon all arms of government, independent offices, county governments, security agencies, political leaders, civil society, private sector, the media, and citizens to collectively safeguard the Bill of Rights and ensure that no one is left behind. And that, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, is the current state of the human rights in the Republic of Kenya for the period December 2024 to December 2025. May justice be our shield and defender. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. So we are going to take questions from the media. We will start with questions in English and Swahili. Then after that, I know more we want to interview among any others. Those ones will die on the side. So now we can take questions in English and Swahili. So just as your name, Media House, then you ask your question. So let's go back.
Hi, good morning. Thank you for the presentation for the on the July, you said there are 57 instances. I don't know if they all mean 57 minutes, or if so, how many months that initially executed. Obviously, they need to two tally centers. However, those two tally centers. And comparing last year to this year, do you think we are doing any good or the things that are getting back?
Thank you. Can I take more questions?
Lala Shaban from NTV. Serikali ilisha tangaza mwaka huu kuna matarajio makubwa sana ya mavuno mengi kutoka shambani, magunia kama 77 ya mahindi, lakini natarajiwa kwamba yale itolewa na serikali imesaidia sana ili katika ripoti imetajwa kwamba maeneo ambayo yameathiriwa sana, japokuwa kuna maendeleo yale ama maeneo kama hayo, lakini kuna sehemu ambazo hawajapata manufaa na wakapata maelezo zaidi kuhusu maeneo hayo ni yapi na ni wapi kuna ukunjufu. Swali lingine ni kuhusiana na kutwaliwa kwa silaha kutoka maeneo ambayo yamekumbwa na janga hili kama ile ya Mapete, TRT kama mzee. na kwamba inaripotiwa kwamba wanatumia nguvu sana kiasi cha kuwaadhibu, kuwapiga vibaya, kuwatisha, yaani mbinu za ukatili sana. Na naweza kupenda kama unaweza kutoa maelezo zaidi kuhusu hilo, na ni mkono wa serikali, kwa sababu ni mpango wa serikali, inaweza kufanya hivi vizuri zaidi. Asante sana.
Thank you very much. The mic, Chair Dr. Shaban was an MNT. Alikuwa kuna mambo kwa hilo na mambo anayotaka. Sasa sisi ndio watu wanazungumzia. Kwa sababu sisi
Thank you very much. My name is Dennis New. My first question goes to affordable housing. We've been talking about affordable housing, and these projects of affordable housing have started in urban areas. According to the Bill of Rights, we say that all Kenyans are supposed to have affordable housing. Why have they not started in the northern frontier areas and counties that are marginalized? Question number 2, the chairman has talked about intersex. It is one of the emerging issues that wants us to actually ask the Commission to come in and to also say that or recommend the amendment of the Constitution of the Republic of Kenya. Because when you look at the intersex people, when you make law, they are not even included in the Constitution. So we want the Constitution to be amended so that we can add in several issues, and where we have gaps, they can be changed. For example, we are now having this issue of artificial intelligence, which should also be captured in this Constitution of ours. It is now old enough, and it is time, the highest time for us to change the Constitution of the Republic of Kenya. Once we change it, we shall get a sound parliament, we shall have enhancement of the judiciary, and you know, the rule of law will be enhanced. Another question goes to femicide issues. Madam, you talked about the femicide issues, but I also wanted you to actually specifically go to what we call femicides. Femicide is the killing of girls between 12 years and below. Remember, I think yesterday we had a case in Nairobi around Embakasi where a child of 12 years was actually found killed. So we just want you actually to include these ones. Lastly, when you go to issues concerning corruption, those people who are presiding over corruption are from the public service. Go to the treasury, look for your money, you will stay for 10 years, then you get pension. So we want to question the government to actually do something to restructure and overhaul the public service. Some of them enter the public service, they have got questionable academic papers, and they are very senior in this government. Some of them are leading security organs. I have an example of somebody who is in the public service, and he has been threatening the person who was investigating the case because he's a very senior person. And I used the documents from a very local person in Western Kenya. So let us not just come here and talk on things that we are not going to implement or things that we are not going to make them practical. Let us start rooting out corruption. Hata ukienda tu kwa hiyo employment ya public service, useme kila mtu atoe certificate ya class 7 na class 8, anzia hapo. Kwanza wacha kuanzia PhD. When you start from down there, utaona majina ya watu yanabadilika. Mwingine atakwambia yangu ilichomeka, mwingine atakwambia hana. And wale hawana na wale ilichomeka, they cannot ascertain. Let them go home and employ the new public service. Thank you.
Thank you. This is the last one, and then we respond to those ones first.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Joshua Mutua Wema from the civil society. I'm a human rights defender. I have a very serious question which touches
everybody in Kenya, including you commissioners and the chairperson from Kenya National Human Rights Commission. This is about the just concluded by-elections. You have confessed before the media that even your fellow people were denied entry to the tallying centers. Now as a commission, because you are the one charged with safeguarding human rights, I'm asking a very simple question. What step have you taken as far as that being denied to enter the tallying centers is concerned? Being a commission, if you were denied, how about the other human rights defenders and the other people who were monitoring election? According to you, can you justify whether the election was done in the right way? And because from your talk it was not done in the right way, do you believe the people who were elected are legitimate? And for that matter, what is your commission doing to address this serious problem before 2027? Thank you.
Thank you, Wyman. Kindly allow us to get the responses for those ones. We did not introduce our chairperson. Her name will be on the statement. Clarice Oganga is her name, but you see the name in the statement. And even the other commissioners, make sure you get the names right. I request the commissioners who will be responding, maybe they can also start with their name again for the benefit of the media. Chair, you can get us.
Thank you. Thank you very much. A number of questions have been raised. Allow me to respond to some of them, then we will allocate responses to the rest. The first question was on the right to life, where we said we documented 57 cases on the rights of violations to life. And the question was whether these are extrajudicial killings. Allow me to confirm that yes, these are cases that we documented that occurred because of extrajudicial measures that led to the loss of lives for 57 Kenyans. We have in our database a list of all of them. We just highlighted a few of them that we thought it's important to highlight. Allow me to ask the Vice to respond to the issues of the Northern Frontier regions and the issue of disarmament.
Thank you, Chair. It is true the ongoing disarmament in North Rift region and some parts of Northeastern, especially on Operation Malisa Walifu. It's been ongoing, and the resultant effect has been relative calm in those areas that we've said they were gazetted as dangerous and disturbed. At the moment, that amnesty that the government is using, it has not entered the forceful stage. And that's why in our report, we said there are some allegations that some people were killed. And we are calling upon the relevant authorities to carry out the investigation to establish what really happened. But what I can assure you is that this armament is a surest way of realizing sustainable peace in northern Kenya. If civilians are disarmed, and if only our security officers are allowed to be the ones who are having guns, then we can be sure of realizing sustainable peace in those disturbed areas. And so we have recommended that investigations be done to establish what really happened. But the Commission fully supports the ongoing disarmament. But it must be done in line within the law, using the human rights-based approach and the whole of society, the whole of government and society approach, so that there is full cooperation and trust from the community and even the leaders.
Thank you. Professor will respond to three issues. The issue of the food security, artificial intelligence, and a bit on the by-elections.
Thank you very much, Chair. My name is Professor Marion Mutugi. In respect to the question on food, yes, it is noted, as you did state correctly, that there seems to be unexpected bumper harvests. However, the concern that the Commission has is in terms of marketing, so that farmers get due payments for their produce commensurate to the effort and the funds that they put in for that food production, as well as we note that the bumper harvest is not countrywide, and there is the issue of the marginalized areas that do not have food and how this food will reach these people, whether it will be accessible, whether it will be affordable. There is also the issue in terms of food production of food implements, for example, production implements like chemicals and so forth that may not be safe. And we are calling upon the various regulatory agencies like the Pests Control Board to ensure that these pesticides and chemicals that are being used in Kenya are safe. There is also the issue of genetically modified organisms, and we're just calling upon the government to release the report that was done by a task force in terms of the safety to human life. In terms of artificial intelligence, yes, that question is very relevant, because now with artificial intelligence, we see all kinds of misinformation and disinformation in social media. With the artificial intelligence, we can take somebody's head and put it onto another person's body and show that actually that person is lying in a coffin and so forth. We also note issues of cyberbullying, issues of betting and Ponzi schemes, where especially the youth are vulnerable and their limited resources are being taken advantage of. And this is really a product of artificial intelligence and digitalization and social media that needs close monitoring and regulation, as well as public information, so that our people are not vulnerable. In terms of the by-elections, there was a question, and yes, the Commission monitored these by-elections, and they were kept out of two tallying centers, Chicago Primary School in Mbeere North and Mumboni Northward. They were kept out of those tallying centers, and therefore we cannot make a decision on whether the elections were free and fair because we were denied entry. Thank you very much.
I'm Dr. Dennis Omalo, a commissioner, like I said. I'm glad to take a question, actually from my colleague Dennis Smiu. It was more of a, I think, a comment, not a question, but just to respond to that. I know it will take a whole day for us to understand who an intersex person is. But probably just to give an overview, an intersex person or a child is a child born with biological sex characteristics that are not categorically cannot be put in either male or female. And normally this is due to the hormonal imbalances, for example, the gonads in terms of ovaries and testicles, in terms of chromosomes, XY or XX, and in terms of physiological presentation. You are all aware that during 2019 national census, Kenya was the first country in Africa and in the world actually to have included intersex persons as a that sex marker in our centers. So there's male, female, and intersex. And even right now, most of the documentations we're working on were including this kind of a matter. So in terms of what has the commission done or is doing, Dennis, and for information, I'm the first intersex person to hold a state office in Kenya, in Africa, and in the world. So meaning, Kenya already we're on the global map, and people are coming from different countries to benchmark with us. So what have we done so far? In the 2019 census, actually Kenya recorded 1,524 intersex persons, cutting across all counties. So their brothers and sisters, aunties, and whatever. So the commission, together with IPIC, has come up with an intersex persons bill, which we are still calling it 2024. At the moment, or currently, is at the Office of the Attorney General and the Department of Justice, which seeks to recognize or to introduce a legal recognition as information for intersex persons. Once this bill goes through, and this is what we are working towards, and this is our prayer, then, believe you me, what SMEU has just raised, intersex persons are going to be recognized, and intersex persons are going to have all the opportunities just like any other person. So briefly, we will have a separate conversation for this, but so far the commission is on it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Allow me to ask Commissioner Sarah to respond to the issues on femicide.
Thank you very much. The issue of femicide and girl-child violation is something that is a monster that is creeping into our nation and is a very delicate matter because the issue of girl-child over the centuries has been a major challenge because girls normally do not have the same rights as the boy child, but the 2022 Children's Rights Bill has actually provided a legal position to protect and to support all genders equally. But as a criminal offense, and the girl child needs to be protected. Besides the femicide, they have been exposed to several negative social-cultural practices like early marriage, FGM, among others. So I think the relevant agencies should take stern action and protect the girl child in and out of school, especially those in the rural areas and also in the urban centers. The crime is rising, maybe because of issues of drug abuse and unemployment. Yeah, there are so many instances where youth are idle and they resort to negative practices. But the killing of girls is actually a very serious crime, and we need to protect our girls. And of course, we need also to protect our boy child, because we have neglected them over the years, also because we've also taken a lot of effort in supporting and empowering girl child. To strike a balance, I think we need to strengthen both girl child and boy child. But it's very unfortunate that we're having femicide cases in this country in this time and age, and we need to find a way of safeguarding, and through our education system we need to ensure that they are given the right guidance, the right support, both genders actually, both our children. But the cases that have been reported, there are cases which are not even reported, especially like from rural areas. Those who are reported maybe through exposure through social media, or those who can understand to undertake the legal process, or even raising complaints, they are lucky. But think of all the other girls in the rural areas who are experiencing maybe worse off situation, but nobody is raising these issues. And we thank our human rights defenders who live with our societies. They are our great partners. Let's highlight these cases and let's support and make sure that our girls are safe. Thank you.
Thank you. Allow me to respond to 3 other questions that were raised. One was on the right to housing and why it looks like it's a discriminatory process in terms of prioritizing the right to housing. Allow me to first say that the issue of housing is an economic social rights issue that requires that the government takes a progressive approach to its implementation. And one of the areas that we acknowledge is the first step in terms of recognizing that the right to housing is actually a right and not just a development issue. The Commission is working very closely with the government in terms of ensuring that prioritization is a key issue within the affordable housing project, especially ensuring that most marginalized and vulnerable populations are taken into account when allocating houses and also when prioritizing areas of construction. But we also acknowledge that it's a progressive right, and the government has a right to prioritize the areas that it feels right to housing they need to start with. The other issue was on corruption. I think corruption has become a national issue, and maybe it's about time it's recognized as a national disaster, because it's not in lack of laws. We have laws that can address the issue of corruption. The issue is in the implementation of laws and policies that we have, especially when the laws and policies touch on the very people who are supposed to implement those laws. Currently, there are 2 laws that have been enacted. Once again, the Conflict of Interest Act and Asset Preservation Act. So on our side, we will keep on monitoring and putting government to task to ensure that they implement the laws around corruption, especially as we head towards elections, because that is a period that we are likely to see a lot of violations of these rights. Then the last is just to add on to what Professor Marion talked about, the by-elections. For us, monitoring the by-elections was very critical, because for us it's an indicator of what's likely to happen in 2027, and that's hardly 1 and about 7 months, 1 year and 7 months to go. And for us, we feel that the constitutional rights, the right to vote and the right to be voted for, were actually infringed during this particular process. And the Commission looks at these rights holistically for us to make an assessment of whether the elections were free and fair. And having noted that there were quite a number of violations as raised in the report, the by-elections cannot be said to have been fully free and fair. There were a lot of violations. There were a lot of infringement on the rights of the voters, infringement on the rights of the people who were to be voted for, that compromised the by-elections. And our work really is to work now with IEBC, Parliament and the Executive to look at preparedness for the next by-elections. The Commission will be releasing the full report on the by-elections, and you'll be able to pick on some of the areas that we feel needs reforms, and the government needs to put in place measures to implement the issues that have been raised in that report. I think.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Maybe before we take the next round of questions, there's a question that was asked in Kiswahili and the requesting a response in Kiswahili. Naibu mwenyekiti alijibu hilo swali kuhusu masuala ya mbinu za kikatili ambazo zinatumika kwa kuponya silaha wakazi katika maeneo ya kaskazini ya bonde la Ufa. Kwa naomba hilo swali, na iwapo unajua ni wangapi ambao walipoteza maisha katika shughuli hiyo wakati kulikusia. Naibu mwenyekiti Daktari Raymond Nyeris.
Asante sana Dan. Nataka niseme kwamba juhudi za serikali za kupokonya raia silaha haramu katika bonde la Ufa limeweza kuleta utulivu katika sehemu hizo. Wakati huu ukiweza kutembea mahali kama sehemu kama Chesekon, Pokot Central, Tiati, watu wameweza kuishi pamoja kwa sababu za juhudi za serikali za kuweza kuhakikisha kwamba watu ama raia wanaishi pamoja, lakini tumeweza kupokea malalamishi ama ripoti kutoka kwa washikadau ambao wanahusika na mambo ya haki za kibinadamu kwamba kuna watu ambao waliweza kuuawa, na ndiposa tumeweza kusema kwa ripoti yetu kwamba tunataka uchunguzi uweze kufanywa ili tuweze kuthibitisha kwamba mambo haya yalifanyika. Lakini jambo ambalo tunataka kusema ni kwamba tume linaunga mkono juhudi za serikali ya kupokonya raia silaha haramu ili amani iweze kupatikana katika bonde la Ufa na sehemu zingine za nchi yetu. Kwa hivyo hilo ni jambo tutaendelea kufanya na tutashirikiana na washikadau wengine kama IPOA ili tuweze kufanya uchunguzi na tuweze kuthibitisha mambo hayo. Asante.
Asante. Idadi ya watu ambao wanadaiwa kufariki katika operesheni hiyo.
Jinsi ripoti ilivyosema, tulisema tumepata ripoti kwamba karibu watu 12 waliweza kuuawa. Ndipo sasa tunasema tunataka tuweze kufanya uchunguzi ili kuthibitisha.
Okay, there was one question. He has just reminded us. He had asked earlier on our take about the calls to have a review of the constitution. You know, this year we mark 15 years of the current constitution. Maybe we can get a response on that, and then we can take one more. Who else? 1, 2. I think when they take those two, so that we can respond to all at once. Let's take those two. Yeah, there. Any other? Okay, that will be the last one. Name, Media House, there's a question.
Okay, so my name is Kam Chemenza from KBC. I just need a clarification on the issue. You indicated that during the by-elections, the Commission documented 3 cases of deaths. Perhaps for purposes of clarity in reporting, which areas were the deaths documented from? Then on the matter of violations, justice is one of the issues that has not been forthcoming for long for the families that lost their peoples or maybe faced enforced disappearances and all that. From where you sit as a commission regarding justice, what do you think is the weakest link in terms of trying to push for justice for these people?
Thank you. Let's take the last one.
My name is Arabin Sarwa, and for purposes of today, I present myself as a member of the public who is interested on matters human rights. Now, there is a ruling that took place in Kerugoya Court, and I expected the commission to give a direction, but your silence is so loud. Now, we take note, the background is that we take note that the state has shown some element of goodwill towards offering some relief and compensation to the victims of protests. But we are aware that the panel so far constituted has, arising from the court ruling, has flown into some headwinds. And the same court affirmed the commission's mandate affirmed compensation as being within the mandate of the Kenya National Commission on Human Rights. Now we are the country stranded. Do you have a suggestion on the way forward? And why are you so loudly quiet about this issue? And then number 2, I also expect you to be a little bit proactive. We have a case in Ikolomani in Kakamega, Western Province, former Western Province, that has led into loss of lives and is potentially a flare-up, issue. Why are you also not saying something about this? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Chair, I don't know whether the information is sufficient or you need more information about the Kolomani case.
No, we can
Okay.
respond. We can respond.
Okay. Can we get our responses?
I'll just respond to all of them. Yes, yes. Yeah. Thank you very much. I think the first question was on the review of the Constitution and whether we think it's the appropriate time to review the Constitution. I think on our side, as we have mentioned, is that the Constitution that we have is quite sufficient to address especially issues of human rights. The challenge is always the implementation. Why would we review something that we have not even fully implemented? So from our side, we are asking that first, let us implement and then identify the gaps and see what can be done to address the gaps. And a lot of the gaps can actually be done through legislative and institutional reforms, as opposed to, relooking the whole constitutional process. And we all know what, reviewing the Constitution requires. It's a very long process. Yet these are some of the things that we can do through just implementing what's there and also looking at institutional and legal reforms. There was a question on the number of deaths in the by-election, and we've documented 3. So 2 of them were from Kasipul, Kabondo, during the by-elections. And then there was one there was a 70-year-old in a stampede in Kabuchai. So those are the 3 deaths that we've been able to document. 2 in Kasipul and 1 in Kabuchai. The other question was on justice. What is the weakest link? And I think that's a very important question, even as we are grappling with the issues that has been raised about the compensation and the reparations panel. The chain of justice, criminal chain of justice, is quite long. We have the police, we have the who investigate, we have the prosecutor, ODPP, who takes the matter to court, we have the judiciary that then listens to the matter, but we also have lawyers. I would say that the judiciary has done substantively well in terms of addressing cases that go before them. From our side, we feel the biggest link is with the investigations. It is at the investigations that evidence is lost. It is at the investigations that a lot of corruption takes place. It's at the investigations level that there's interference with the evidence and also with witnesses. And this is why the Commission always calls upon the police, IPOA, the investigative arms of the government, to ensure that they align and abide by international standards when it comes to investigations. The Commission will continue to work with the police, with IPOA, and with the other arms that work towards access to justice to ensure that they stand by and abide by the standards as expected of them. The issue of victim, the decision that came from the Kerugoya court. Maybe just to mention that the decision was issued on Friday, so it's barely a week since it was issued. Our team has been looking at the decision, but one of the areas that we acknowledge is that the judge did not throw out the baby with the bathwater. The judge gave clear directions and said the Commission needs to take up that role. The court also said that the court did not only suspended the Gazette notice and directed that we need to have it amended to align to the mandate of the Commission. So that's part of what the Commission is currently doing. It's not that the Commission has been silent. We are reviewing the judgment vis-a-vis the Gazette notice, so that when we issue our advisory or when we take action, then it's aligned to the decision of the court, it's aligned to the mandate of the Commission, and it's also aligned to the Constitution. So this is something that we will do in due course because the court has given us up to 20th of January to ensure that we align the processes, and if we don't do that, then it lapses automatically. The other issue was on the Ikolomani, and I think you're talking about the gold issue, the issue around mining. And just to mention that the Commission has been actively monitoring the two processes. There have been two processes of public participation where NEMA had called for the people in Ikolomani to go and give their, to go and raise their issues. The first one did not take place because of insecurity, I believe. The second one was also scuttled because of insecurity. So this is something that we've also had conversations with some members of the Senate and brought it to their attention. And we also have an MOU with NEMA in terms of issues of ensuring that citizens are engaged with their EAI processes. So we are not quiet about it. It's something that we are monitoring. We are in communication with NEMA, we are in communication with the Senate members, and we are hoping that we will have a way forward on it. Because again, the Commission works on issues around ensuring that businesses protect and adhere to human rights standards. And for us, this is one of the issues that we have to pick up on, because the Commission spearheaded the development of the National Action Plan on Business and Human Rights, and the issues around mining and extractives fall within that particular policy, and it is within our mandate to ensure that that policy is implemented. So in due course, we will have a report on what has transpired and the key actions that the various agencies need to take up to ensure that rights of citizens are protected, but also businesses are allowed to do their work in an environment that promotes development. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. We have come to the end of our press conference. Thank you very much. I'll be inviting our CEO to move the vote of thanks. And then from there, we'll be able to take your interviews in vernacular from inside the room. And we welcome you. Daktari, before you move the vote of thanks, I request you take the photo. Just.
Thank you.
So display of the report. Are they okay there or they move down now? They're okay. Okay. So that is the report. We'll be sharing with you a soft copy of the report. Commissioners, can we smile? This has not been easy. It's okay, just smile. No, it's not been easy. I should be proud of the efforts. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. So, immediately after the vote of thanks, then feel free to reach out to any commissioner for an interview. I believe the breakfast is still out there for those who have not taken it. Then get a copy of the statement, the summary that was presented from Vinesca. Vinesca, where again? Yes, Vinesca. So the copies are here. The chair is going to sign them. Some of you will get the hard copy, some of you will get the soft copies. So, very good to see you.
Thank you very much. It is my privilege to offer this vote of thanks on behalf of Kenya National Commission on Human Rights. And I pass my greetings to you all, and greetings from the Kenya National Commission on Human Rights. Friends of the Commission, members of the fourth estate, members of the public who have attended this function, the Commission thanks you very much. We also pass our special thanks to our chairperson, Clarice Oganga, the commissioners, and the staff who worked tirelessly to prepare this report that we have launched today. We also acknowledge other organizers like the staff of the Sarova Stanley Hotel. We thank you very much for your services. Human rights defenders who have worked with us and are here, we also thank you very much. And when our chairperson was reading the report, she touched on various rights violations. And our appeal is that you monitor those recommendations that are contained in that report. And God willing, when we meet here after 1 year, we take audit of the successes that have gone into this particular initiative of the Commission. And I thank you very much on behalf of the Commission. Asanteni sana, haki kwa wote,
kila wakati.
God bless you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Prof. Prof. Thank you. And I know you're going to come in. That Ramogi. That Ramogi. Okay. It's okay. Leo. Walituma? Okay. That's okay. That's okay then. You will, one day you will have to speak Kijaluo.